7th of July 2019. This video presentation is about property taxation paper 04, that means diploma D04 for the diploma in estate agency conducted by a board of valuer, appraiser, estate agent and property managers. This is a tough paper for quite some people because taxation is not a common study subject in secondary school or even in pre-U. So taxation paper usually only studied in the context of Bachelor of Commerce or Bachelor of Accounting studies. So I myself have done ICSA, Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators. So I had some background in taxation subject, mostly business taxation, company taxation. But even for me, this taxation paper took me 2 attempts. So first attempt, I also failed the subject. So this taxation paper is a killer paper to most people who never had any exposure on property tax. And the taxation paper for diploma in estate agency is not just a taxation paper for personal tax like income tax and also real property gains tax, which is studied in general bachelor degree in commerce. So this property taxation, as its name is a real estate taxation paper. So this real estate taxation paper includes area of taxation which is related to real estate, not just studying property gains tax. It also includes a lot of other area of tax. So I would like to start the presentation in one single slide about all the taxes, the laws that governs the taxes that is involved in this subject paper. So acts of government, the acts of parliament for the taxes in the paper includes Stamp Act 1949, Real Property Gains Tax Act 1965. Of course, I put it below, Income Tax Act 1967, Town and Country Planning Act 1976, and Local Government Act 1976. So probably for most people who has done tax as a subject or sub discipline in the Bachelor of Accounting program, you probably already know about Real Property Gains Tax and also Income Tax Act. But the Stamp Act as well as Town and Country Planning is not included mostly in the study of this Bachelor of Commerce subjects. Local Government Act probably also not included in most of the general accounting programs. So this means to say almost 60 to 70% of the content of the studies of property taxation paper in the diploma in estate agency course is outside the general knowledge of taxes in the study of business taxation. So you need to have the so-called you need to have the potential study area scope and also understanding of the requirement to tackle this paper rather than just based on your previous knowledge of tax. Most people go on to the exam based on the previous knowledge of taxes in business tax. They usually will fail this paper. The Stamp Act as is one of the major issue of paying when you buy property. When there is a transfer of property, there is a stamp duty levied on the transfer. So this is as in here, memorandum of transfer. So usually when you buy a property after years later, sometimes because the title is not yet issued, so the transfer will be later when the title is issued. So the memorandum of transfer, MOT, will incur the stamp duty to be paid. So the usual thing that you read from the newspaper is about the property that is above 1 million, they're going to be introduced 4% stamp duty on property which costs beyond 1 million ringgit Malaysia. So this is what it is to be paid, and it's upon the payment of this stamp duty that the transfer would be effective. And the question on stamp duty usually would have some basics about what type of stamp duty. Is it a stamp duty based on the quantum? That means ad valorem. Ad valorem means for the first 100,000 there is 1%. For the 101 to 500,000, that is 2%. Above 500,000, that would be 3%. And therefore, above 1 million, it would be 4%. So this is ad valorem, different level of quantum. They will be levied a different tax rate. Fixed duty means similar to what we understand about the percentage used in calculation of sales and service tax. So for a professional fee, chargeable to lawyer fee, chargeable for estate agency fee, there is a 6% um, amount which need to be paid for sales and service tax. So that tax system is called a fixed duty tax system. So Stamp Act, inside Stamp Act, there is a stamp duty to be paid for stamping the document. So when the document is to be stamped, there is a 10 ringgit for duplicate, for example. So you have a tenancy agreement, which is a duplicate copy, you need to be stamped, then there will be a fixed duty of 10 ringgit for that duplicate copy. Other than that, the stamp duty area where it comes out in the exam would be all the calculation plus all the transfer exemption. For example, from property passed on to spouse, that means husband to wife or wife to husband, there will be full exemption, 100% exemption. Parents to children or grandparents to children, there will be a 50% exemption on the stamp duty. And of course, if the property is half owned by husband and half owned by wife, then the different calculation per the holding percentage would be used to do this calculation. So all that calculation can come out in one question, and you need to do calculation based on the different rates you have to memorize. There is no, you cannot bring in any chart or any table or any notes. So all those percentage of rates need to be memorized. Then the stamp duty also include the area of how to appeal in case the stamp duty imposed is to the uh, to the person who purchased, to the purchaser, is quantum which he cannot afford, or he has objection on to payment, then he can appeal to the Director General for the consideration of maybe payment in installment, or to have more leniency. So this part usually also come out in the exam as in a subsection of question for essay writing. And the part on other is the calculation of the stamp duty payable on tenancy agreement. So tenancy agreement, for uh, understanding, is that when tenancy is below 3 years, then what is the uh, calculation rate for the tenancy to be stamped, and then for 1 year and for more than 1 year within 3 years, what is the rate to be stamped. So this is a question that can come out in the exam, an example of how stamp duty can be asked. Normally stamp duty question usually is asked together with real property gains tax. So real property gain tax would have been imposed on those gains after disposal. So the disposal gain would be under stamp duty for the purchaser, and under real property gain tax for the person who dispose, who is the seller. So the seller will be imposed RPGT, but then the purchaser will have to pay the stamp duty on transfer. So Income Tax Act 1967, in a lot of time will be required also for two major areas. One is rental income area, and the other one is the personal relief. So especially for the job of estate agent, you need to advise client on how do they declare their income tax. So this is the part that usually can be asked. That means there is a way to reduce the taxable income for rental income, including those expenditure that you can deduct, and those area where in personal tax, where are the area you can save on relief so that you can minimize tax for your clients. So exemption of income tax is also area where it can come up in the exam. Then the other area of tax that is related to property is the real property gains tax. So real property gain tax is usually asked in a scenario question. So usually they need the calculation for uh, subject A sales to subject B, and then subject B pass on to subject C. Sometime on deceased uh, who pass on the property to their descendant. So these are things that you need to study, different schedules, different area where you need to remember, and there is also no reference of charts or tables, so you cannot bring any charts or tables. You just bring your calculator, that's all, and you need to work out the calculations in the answers. So to target this type of questions, you need to practice on your own, especially the past year questions, so that you can produce your answer in a short span of time. So calculation on real property gain tax usually would be coupled with stamp duty. So in the same question, you could be asked stamp duty as well as the required gains, which is taxable by the RPGT Act 1965. There will be also some essay question regarding exemptions or appeal. So if tax payable is not accepted by the person who disposed of the property, then the person can write to the director for appeal to be given a lower amount or even pay up in installment. The other area I would like to mention about this combination in stamp duty and RPGT in one question is that you probably tends to work it out in the system where you answer one part and then go to another part. Do not jam up like doing one part, let's say from subject A sold to subject B, then you do it as subject A who need to pay real property gain tax, but subject B need to pay stamp duty. So in its way of answering, your answer tends to confuse the uh, process of marking as well as the sometimes the issue of your own confusion where you are calculating real property gain tax at the same time you are calculating stamp duty. So therefore, the way to go around this is that you do real property gain tax in one complete part. That means to do from subject A to subject B to subject C in one part, the property gain tax. So you finish up the real property gain tax calculation, only then you move on to stamp duty calculation from subject A to B, B to C. So in such a manner, you can answer your questions in two major parts. One is on real property gain tax, and the other one is on stamp duty. My own personal experience is that don't mix them up together. Like you answer part of it as A to B, and then you include RPGT as well as stamp duty in that context of calculation, and then move on to B to C. Then you calculate again the real property gain tax and the stamp duty. Then you get yourself into confusion whether it is real property gain tax or it is stamp duty. So I would prefer not to mix them together, to separate them so that you complete all in one RPGT, and then the other one is all in stamp duty. And then try to do the complicated one first, because doing the complicated one and you are able to complete the complicated one, then you can understand the whole question in total picture. So when you have done so, it will be easier and easier for you to go on to the easier parts, to go on to the subsequent stamp duty calculation. So in that sense, you probably can complete the whole question in one attempt, rather than finding out from a process of answering that you miss this and you miss another one and other things. So end up in the whole answering of questions, you probably miss out a lot of things in between. So next we move on to Local Government Act. The Local Government Act is mainly for the part that it requires assessment bill. So those are properties which has assessment bill to pay. What are the method of calculations, the issues on whether the law provides for valuation list. So to collect more taxes after many years, the government need to have a new valuation list, and then the residents of the area need to agree to it, and then they will be processed in law that the objections and also government way of calculating the rate of taxing the kadaran for the assessment bills. So this is a area where always will come out, question will always will come out, and then you have also those property which are owned by state government but rented by federal government, or a building which are used for government purposes. So there will be contribution in ads for the ratings. So there is called CIA of rates, or CAR, and then the additional premium. In fact, there is houses which have been renovated, and then there will be additional calculation for all this change of area, change of use from landed property which is residential use to commercial use property. There will be change of use, so that would require a different calculation for the assessment bill. So usually one question will come out, and it will be related to calculation and related to valuation list. Then there will be usually another question, theory question, on the those appeal amendment to the valuation list, those objections to the valuation list. Another area of tax law that is included in the Diploma in Agency Property Tax paper is the Town and Country Planning Act. So Town and Country Planning Act is a federal act which is done for the whole of Malaysia. Rather, the Local Government Act is actually more of a local government in your municipal council or your mukim. So the Town and Country Planning Act is more for development of big scale development, whereby it may cross two states or two regions. So that means the federal side would have a law that governs all the coordination between the state and the federal government. So development charge is for the development of that whole area, and therefore there will be calculation of plot ratio, plain area calculation. And the part I would say it is interesting to note that this part plot ratio, plain area calculation usually will come out, and this is the area where a lot of time students, candidates for exam will find difficulty in answering this type of question. So if you see a question on plot and plain area and you are confused, or you reading this question, then omit this question, because this question is likely only for those people who are in quite specialized town and country planning studies or valuation studies. So those are questions usually used in university for all these sub-discipline of property management or real estate studies. So I would say if you are confident for plot ratio, print area, this will be calculation answers where you may score, and you can score quite fast if you know how to calculate, and ensure that you do a good chance of getting good marks on this question. The other area is that the town and planning would have some essay writing, if in case you are into writing up on development processes, how to develop the whole area. So these are questions which are commonly asked also. Public participation, local plan, when the developer need to plan up for the area, they need to propose a plan, and then the plan goes to the state authority, and the state authority may want to propose for public participation. If it's a big scale development, then the public has has a time frame to contribute to this objection, and then later the planning unit of the state authority would pass on to whether to qualify to pay higher premium or development charge in case there is a high density of use of the land. So this part of country planning, town and country planning, is also covered in part 2. As in the laws relating to property, there will be also one question in part 2 on this. Mainly it's just that Town and Country Planning Act is part of the bigger picture, the area where developers need to pay up development charge tax to government for developing a bigger region. Local government act is more of when the building is up, and then therefore the building needs a lot of maintenance for the local government to clean up the area surrounding it, the drainage, the street lighting. So that is local government act. Town and planning, town and country planning act is more for before the building is up. That means when the developer or the government, the state government or statutory body wants to use up a piece of land for long-term planning, like even industrial planning, township planning. So all these planning need to go through town and country planning system. So there is this part called the development planning control. So this area of questions can be quite technical and also a lot of law involved. So there is also, in case you study also in part 2, the Land Acquisition Act. So town and country planning has a area where the locals can actually ask the government to buy over. So the buy over of the land for the government plan of building infrastructures, all these also involve land acquisition, and therefore this topic of taxation may also in a way cross a bit with land acquisition, which is asked in the laws relating to property and also in the valuation, where you arrive as the market value to sort of compensate landowners for the government to take over the land. So in summary, the area of study on this property taxation is quite wide, and a lot of time people tend to have problem with this paper and repeat probably at least once failure to repeat this paper. So the just to mention about a few things, 4 questions to answer because it's a 2 hours paper, so 30 minutes per answer. So strategize your timing. Those who need calculation, be sure that you can finish up the calculation, not to overdo and expand the answering from 30 minutes to even an hour. So you probably lost out by answering just 3 questions in a total of 4, which is selected from the 7. So in the 7 which are to be selected, you need to uncheck some which you probably do not want to answer, because you understand that the amount of coverage for this taxation paper is quite wide, and then therefore some area you may not be able to study in depth, so therefore you cross out those questions which you are not confident about. So generally there are 4 questions that you can tackle. That is stamp duty and real property gain tax calculation question. So usually there will be 1 or 2 questions like this. So target 1. There will be 1 income tax question or rental related to capital allowance or related to exemptions or relief for income tax. So that is also quite commonly asked and can be targeted. Then the other 2 would be 1 from local government, which is the area of valuation list, new valuation list, appeal, and all these essay writing type of question. And then the town and country planning, which is probably on development charge and development processes. So these are the 4 areas you can target, and probably hopefully you pass up in the sense. So I have done an analysis for past year 2011 to 2018. So I would like to disclaim that subsequent slides, I'm doing a bit of repeat topics, prediction on repeat topics. So indeed, if similar question actually would be asked in the examination, it is by no way, and I take no responsibility or liability. It is entirely by chance and entirely coincident. I do not want to predict something which eventually I get into trouble. So this is the analysis from 2011 to 2018 from question 1 to question 7 for all these number of years. So quite complicated, but I summarize it as in the spot question, 2019 spot question. So the repeat topics likely will come out would be in high priority. First is development charge in the town and country planning and then the ratings, all these assessment for the assessment bill lah, kadaran lah, under the Local Government Act. So this will come up as one of the questions. Second is the priority is the area of calculation of stamp duty and also area of real property gains tax. So this one will always come out. So they will give you a scenario, and likely you need to calculate from subject A selling to subject B to subject C. So this is a good two question. If you target these two questions well, definitely you probably get to answer these two in the exam. Then the third is the area of more theory and more explaining definition. Explaining would be like, for example, they will say, well, what is ad valorem duty, what is fixed duty, what is annual value, what is improved value, what is drainage rates to use for calculation of assessment. All these are quite theory question, explaining question. The fourth area will be, let's say you go into exemptions, relief, and taxes relief. In what situation you can ask for exemption? In what situation you can appeal and object to paying, or you can ask for a lesser payment? So these are quite common asked question also. It may become part of the earlier major question. Let's say you have one calculation of stamp duty, and then later there will be area ask you about whether you can ask for exemption or not for the stamp duty, or how is the appeal for asking for appeal for stamp duty payable. And then the last few, which I will keep at the side in case you are lucky to answer this question, will be more on income tax, classification of types of income, maybe in the area of relief. These are quite commonly also asked, but not necessarily in a major question. And unless you are quite specialized in part 2, where you are doing land acquisition and all those things, you can study more things like additional premium for conversion of land, additional proposed for government to buy up the land, all the land acquisition and also land alienation. So those are part 2 papers, which are also involving knowledge of taxation and valuation. Thank you, and we move on to the last few summaries. The repeat topics is, as I said before, the calculation of RPGT, stamp duty, development charge, why there is development charge, plot area, clean area, plot ratio and clean area, annual value as in assessment rate and valuation list, also income tax area, objection and appeal, exemption on income rating, stamp duty, RPGT, additional premium on charge of use, on change of use. So all these repeat topics, if you put more effort in studying and crystallize your thoughts, probably you can pass a property taxation paper. Thank you so much. estateagentexam.com is an online portal for study of the diploma in estate agency course by the Board of Valuer, Appraiser, Estate Agent and Property Managers. To know your position, crystallize your vision and mission, how to be different. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.